Okay, here we go. Everybody on mute.
From text to tongue to the world beyond, this is SpoFest.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rick Christensen. I am your co-host this evening, and I would like to welcome all of you to SpoFest. And I would also like to introduce our founder and the host of SpoFest, actor, comedian, musician, writer, and author of the Dark Haiku series, Mr. James Bryant. Take it away, James.
Okay, all the moving parts here. Okay, thank you, Rick, and thank you everybody for being here to yet another SpoFest event, our last feature reader event of 2022. So glad you guys could be here on Zoom and everywhere, coast to coast, and all that good stuff. We have a special guest author this evening, first Missouri Poet Laureate Walter Bargen, and he's going to be reading excerpts from his book, which is available in tonight's book raffle, entitled, check this out, Pole Dancing in the Nightclub of God. You just want to buy the book just on the name itself. Pole Dancing in the Nightclub of God. That book is going to be up for grabs in our book raffle. We're going to have open mic, of course. We're going to have Q&A, and we're also going to learn about this day in literature. But before we get all to that, I want to introduce again my special co-host. He's going to take us through the first and second segments here. So without further ado, let me bring it back to you, Rick.
And thank you very much, sir. And what we want to start with this evening is, of course, hearing some of the wonderful poetry of our featured readers. And our first reader tonight is, well, what can I say about him? He is from this planet, in spite of his own attempts to pass around the country that he's from other places. But I have narrowed it down. He is in the Laniakea supercluster in the observable universe, subset local group Virgo cluster in the Solway galaxy, in the Earth system in North America, in Massachusetts, United States, in Essex County, in Swampscott. So we've narrowed it down. We've GPSed him with the little chip that the government put in his brain 30 years ago. And so he is of this universe, and he is currently in Swampscott. Lee Eric Freedman is the third poet laureate of Swampscott from 2016 to 2018. He is the renegade poet laureate of Swampscott for forever, self-appointed. He is the host of First Friday Night Open Mic from Reach Arts in Swampscott. He's president of the 10 Bucks Poets of Swampscott. He's a three-time winner of the Naomi Tchaikovsky Memorial Poetry Award. And so, with no further ado, from, you guessed it, Swampscott, Massachusetts, please join me in welcoming Lee Eric Freedman.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, James. Thanks, Rick. Thanks to CC and Angela and Walter. And thanks to everybody who's showing up tonight. I appreciate it. A prayer for Bridget. Let us pray. Hail to the Holy Queen. Hail to visions of ecstasy. Hail to you. You give to me the power of my poetry. Hail to this Celtic goddess. I pray she walks with the poets among us. She gives to me my power to write this precious gift I hold so tight. I honor her and swear my loyal. May her gifts lay ease to my loathe and toil. She anoints my pen with her sacred oil, and I give to the world my words unspoiled. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. So this next piece was recently published. I've got a number of poems published through the Kuch Behar Publishing Works out of India this year. Surav Sakar, you might know him. He's the editor and publisher, and he's trying to be world renowned. So this one is in the World Anthology, which came out a few months back, and it is called At the Iron Skillet Truck Stop, Forest City, Arkansas, 1995. Tony the trucker belches, leans back in his chair, pulls up his wrinkled shirt tail, wipes the fried chicken, corn cobbed and mashed potatoed grease off his face. Barbara the waitress, her brown hair tied into a long, sleek ponytail, hustles toward his table. Can I get you something else, sugar? No thanks, Babs. I'm all set for now. Well, have a good night and drive safe. We'll see you soon. No cowboy-mouthed TV Mel's Diner, achy breaky hearts seen here. This is very real. This is the real deal. Excited, a little boy squeals at the top of his lungs. Mommy, I love this place. Can we eat here tomorrow? His family gathers themselves to hit the camper trailer vacation time freeway tourist AmeriCruiser. Other big riggers converse with their private big rig world. Designated truckers only tables, each connected with a white courtesy telephone, convey private industry speak of invoice receiving, bills of lading, distance cargo shipping, the real language of interstate long haul, pedal to the metal, highway open road. Ordering tin pan, greasy spoon, chicken fried steak, mashed gravy, veggies, very large cup of Joe to go. Pack up, move out, driving, rolling, speeding down life's asphalt avenues. Route 40 heads east, bridging the Big Muddy, welcoming you to Memphis. We travel west, crossing Arkansas, Oklahoma, the panhandle of Texas, across plains and prairies, far, far beyond these stardust nights. Truck Stop USA refreshes, refuels, replenishes, sustains our delicious journey while we drive far, far away to our final destination across America. Thank you. And the last one for this segment, I don't think he's shown up yet, but I don't care. I'm going to read it anyway. This is a world premiere to the world tonight. I already workshopped it yesterday, but it is a world premiere, and it is called Hello There. And it is for Mr. T.A. Niles. And forgive me, I'm reading off my other screen, so that's why I'm looking over here. Hello there. Later, over drinks, after tonight's open mic, in casual conversation, I query, so what's your real first name? T.A. crinkles his face into a brown study. You really want to know, my friend? He shakes his head, smiles. Let's make this a game. Or actually, let's make a game of this. Why don't you guess? Thiago Abraham? No. Tristan Alexander? Nuh-uh. Tyrell Addison? Negative. I know. Titus Andronicus? Laughs. Tobias Albert? Clever, but not exactly. Tiberius Archaeopteryx? Snorts, groans. Tony Allen, like Fela Kuti's drummer? Way coolly, but no dice. I got it. Telemachus Agamemnon. Most definitely not. Tarquin Archibald, Tapio Axel, Thurman Andromeda? No! TNA? Now shut your mouth, Lee. He quickly cuts me off, his face a blaze of blast furnace horror. I retreat to the corner. A long ashen silence ensues. After what seems like an impenetrable solitude, but really is a minute or three, in his calmest voice of green deep velvet, he answers, T.A. Niles. Call me T.A. Niles. Hey, T.A. Niles. He laughs. Hello there, Lee Eric, my friend. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee. Fun and edifying as always. Our second feature reader tonight is a third generation Shamanchu American and award-winning poet, author, and publisher with 20 plus years of experience as a professional writer in nonfiction. She is publisher of Space and Time magazine, which was established in 1966, and a two-time Bram Stoker Awards winner and an HWA Mentor of the Year for 2020. You can find her at angelasmith.com, and we'll drop that into the chat a little later. From currently, I will say, from Independence, Missouri, soon from Brazil, let's welcome Angela Yuriko Smith.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to break it up a little bit and do some fiction because I never read fiction over here. And also I can't find my poetry books. So you get fiction. I found those. And this is Vanilla Rice. This is actually the first story I published that I got paid professionally for, and kind of like my breakout story. So I'm going to share a little bit of it here. Vanilla Rice. Miko stared at the choices on the kiosk in front of her, hovered her finger over Caucasian, and touched. New choices slid onto the screen. One hand cradled her rounded belly. With the other, she selected blue eyes, and then blonde. She reached up to touch her own thick, straight hair. It was so dark it shone blue in the sunlight. She hated it. Her daughter would not be so Asian. She selected curly on the submenu. When she finished making her selection, she slid in her stolen credit. A warning popped up on the screen. The attribute chip is permanent, and its removal may cause a breakdown in DNA. Please use the attribute chip sparingly and with caution. The attribute chip is a safe, effective way to manipulate native DNA for desired physical effects, but it is for appearance only. It is illegal to modify your chip to alter intelligence or other non-physical attributes. Once installed, it is advised to leave the attribute chip in place for the duration of the lifespan or risk DNA instability. To accept these risks, click and sign. She bit her lip nervously, knowing what a DNA breakdown looked like. 2 doors away in her building, there was a man with no nose. His flesh had destabilized and fallen off in gooey pieces. Just when his degeneration seemed finished, his skin would get gummy again, like fresh mochi, and he would hide in his apartment and order takeout for weeks. Sometimes, when she walked past his door, she imagined she heard him sobbing. This wouldn't happen to her daughter, though. She wouldn't try to modify her daughter's chip for intelligence, an assumption she had for why her neighbor's chip malfunctioned. She was no genetic engineer anyway. The physical attributes would be enough. Miko had hidden herself in a neighborhood where she blended in, but her daughter would stand out like an angel of light so bright it would illuminate even Miko's shadowed existence. Her daughter would have every suitor and marry a rich, kind man. Her daughter would be a princess like she had seen in cartoons. Miko had hated her childhood. Cartoons had been an escape from a father who screamed instead of talked. His face was always flushed red beneath thinning orange hair. By contrast, her mother had been a colorless shadow, cowering and almost non-existent, an internet purchase that her father had tried to return. Miko had already been growing in her mother's belly by then, making her mother non-refundable. Because of Miko, her mother was defective. Miko would sneak away to see the cartoons in the downstairs lobby, and the attendants would let her sit behind the counter and watch. Sometimes her father would call and ask if they had seen her leave the building, and the attendants always told him no, careful not to look at her when they lied. They hardly looked at her at all, but they let her hide and watch the cartoons on their television. She never saw Asian princesses on television. The television princesses all had bright, wavy locks and pale skin. Her hair was just black and it hung straight as if gravity was trying to pull her into the ground. On TV, their eyes were always large, round, and usually blue. No one she knew growing up had squinty, dark, small eyes like hers. That's how you know defective goods, her father always said, by the squinty eyes. But that was in the past, and she had left all that behind. She hovered her finger over the accept icon, hesitated, and then selected it. She scrawled her name. The kiosk gave a friendly bell tone to let her know her payment had been accepted, and the image of a chip appeared on the screen. Small animated robots worked on the chip, using old-fashioned screwdrivers and hammers. Congratulations, the words popped up on the screen. Your attribute chip is finished. Please have a professional install within 24 hours of your baby's birth. Do not unseal your attribute chip until ready to install. There was a click, and a small plastic sleeve dropped into the tray in front of her. She carefully picked it up and held it to her heart. Miko hadn't planned to have a baby, but when she found out she was having a daughter, she became obsessed with making her child everything she couldn't be. She had grown up as an olive-skinned alien in a world full of bright people with hair in all shades of red, gold, and chestnut. Her daughter would be one of them, the most beautiful of them all. Her princess daughter would open the doors of that world to Miko. She smiled and tucked her chip away safely. 3 months later, she gave birth in a medical timeshare cubicle during her lunch hour. Miko named her Katsu. The medical tech tried to change her mind about installing the attribute chip in her daughter, droning on about DNA risks, but Miko couldn't hear him. She was too busy dreaming about designing dresses for her new tiny angel. No matter how he tried to caution her, Miko just asked for the legals to sign. After signing, they wheeled her daughter away to install the chip, while her genetic build was still malleable. And I think that should be my time right there.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much. And James, it sounds like you're back and you got us recording again. So Angela, we may have to come back to you later and get you to reread that story, but we'll see.
It's a secret story. Nobody can hear.
Yeah, but we're back live feeding again, so that's good, and recording. And that brings us to our third and final featured reader this evening. Our third and final reader is self-taught. He is guided by benevolence to live and to leave a body of work. He, in his younger days, owned and worked in the upholstery and interior design business. After his mid-20s, he spent most of 20 plus years in Boston driving taxis and horse carriages, and we're going to have to hear some stories about that later. His life in the arts includes the movement and healing arts, free speech advocacy, activism, venue concept creations, videographer, producer, publisher, author, visual artist, and a multi-genre writer, and currently primarily a poet with a new book coming out. So, from the northwest corner of Connecticut on the Housatonic River in the town of Cornwall Bridge, everyone join me in welcoming Mr. C.C. Arshagra.
Wow, thank you. Yes, there is a new book, and it is an important part of my life. And this book is from 20 years ago. It's a republication of a 3-part chapbook series documenting free speech and poetry, and it includes 3 essays. What it's like to republish this work 20 years later. And the very first paragraph in the essay about the first section, Scared Sacred, where the first sentence reads, "Now 2 decades later and tested by the ultimate critic, time, the open mic poems, a 3-part chapbook series reemerges as a single volume for the first time, retitled The Open Microphone, Human Rights, Free Speech, and the Word. And with the words of my most treasured peers in poetry, jazz, journalism, and academia supporting this work, it appears now as a contribution to the arts, letters, humanities, and free speech." So this is in poetry form, but it basically is something I wanted to do with my life. It is a teaching tool. So this is a book, when you open it up, 10,000 poets come out that have done this. And number 4 in section 1 reads, "Being scared when you split a raw nerve open naked, the tragic image of your self-reaction's hunger. And within your mind, you are mocked by your very own strong, tender efforts, and pity moves to applaud you, and you feel honored. sensitivity touches your eyes and someone says, you've got to start somewhere to unveil your own ego. Do you feel like somebody or like nobody who is not scared? Do you return to the stage of everyone to read the same dance steps that tap, tap out? I'm good enough to read my writing again. Am I scared enough to hear myself hear? Pride in appearance. Reflect and pose. What is it? Am I writing? What am I doing to your listening? Just what am I doing on this stage with the poetry of my life? Am I simply just afraid, too scared and unaware? What does it mean to be too aware? What is unknowable? And now on the stage of what is it? That's sacred. Number 5 in the book. It happens, and this is fine. A tender finding of fiery confidence moves your pen in hand, and out of your mind alone, you write. To draw the mind vision silhouette of self, and then to feel the walls standing between old truths fall. A raw surge of word might, a flushing wave of freed suppression, the poetry of experience, now the weather, the storm. Then to share this self-worth and ego creation. It happens, these two worlds within one mind will mesh. The experience a rung on the ladder of life and death, a brave climb to the microphone's risk of opening yourself, to be foolish enough to face dying. Wait, the death of living cries, shed first the Titan named Atlas. 1 foot slow moves up and a rung is down. And the first reading leaves you excited and breathless. Now the poetry of living your own life experience, now to weather the storm of being a writer. And number 6, I'll end with this. Filled with hope and the faith of pain to die without hate's trace. The God self touches pen and paper and writes me. Alone steps on the stage to read it. And from the peak of Mount Everest, skylines reach, a voice shakes with cold fire as from a mine shaft opening, the last words of the first poem, shivering, scared, sacred. The God self of the first time, open microphone poet awaits expectations to reign. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Rick. I can't wait to hear you, Walter, and thank you, James.
And thank you, CC, and thanks to all of our featured readers. We, of course, will hear from everyone twice more this evening in their second and third segments. I've just been told by James that he is having a technical difficulty and is not able to unmute himself at the moment. So I'm going to kind of fly by the seat of my pants here. And so now on to our next segment. And usually we would get some music here, but I will kind of fake it. Let's see. I'm off of the painkillers. Segment 2 on this day in literature. So December 6th, 1877, Thomas Edison recorded himself reciting "Mary Had a Little Lamb" on his new invention and created with that the very first wax recording, the very first time that that the human voice was able to be saved and reproduced. On December 6, 1933, the ban on James Joyce's Ulysses was lifted in the United States. And on December 6, 1954, Simone de Beauvoir received the Prix Goncourt Prize in French Literature. Now, there's usually more music, but James can't do it. So our next segment is our featured readers take their second turn at reading. So we are flying through this, and I will now bring us back to the gentleman who, again, presents himself as an alien, but we've proven that he's from our planet, from Swampscott for his second turn at the mic tonight, Mr. Lee Eric Freedman.
Thanks. Great first set, Angela and Cece. Excellent. Looking forward to hearing you, Walter. So the Pushcart Prize nominations are making the rounds all over Facebook, and a whole bunch of people that I know have been nominated, and I'm busy congratulating them. So in 2018, my friend Clem Schoenebeck, who is a member of my Tin Box Poetry Workshop group, was nominated for the Pushcart Prize as well. And I wrote this for him, and it's called Nominated for Clem Schoenebeck. Clem is nominated for a Pushcart Prize. Congratulations, you've been selected and nominated for the Pushcart Prize for Poetry. His official filigreed letter reads, he doesn't win. I can honestly say that I don't know, nor have I ever heard of anyone actually winning the Pushcart Prize for Poetry. Has anyone really won? Maybe one, or maybe no one. Poets get nominated yearly, and some of them I know, but the actual winners must live someplace far, far away or long, long ago. If there really are any prize winners, and I'd like to think that there are, they'll read their winning poems on cable access TV, receive a plaque, the money, the power, the glory, a Mont Blanc pen, and here's your brand new gold pushcart, eager to push home. A new pushcart? A new gold pushcart? What fun! How cool it would be for both Clem and I, actual Pushcart Prize winners, pushing our gold barrows. Vendors of poems, watermelons, whirligigs, fresh fish or cell phones to the crowded Fisherman's Beach on hot, lazy August afternoons. Later, we sip sundowners on the porch after a howl of Siberian huskies happily drive us home. This poem will never be nominated for a Pushcart Prize. It's too wanting, too pretentious, doesn't have that pushcart pizzazz. Or in other words, it's just too fucking cool. Or maybe the Pushcart Prize nominating committee is like so jealous of me. The New Yorker phoned this morning. Their editors told me yes. They told those Pushcart nominators no. Thanks. So this next poem was recently published in the anthology Out Loud, which came out on Red or Green Books out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Was edited by Elizabeth Strauss, and Marissa Prada is the owner. This is Out Loud, an LGBTQ literary art anthology, and I am honored to be in it. This is one of my two poems. It's called A Moment. His sun-filled body shines, its golden image vibe, square into my eyes. I'm drunk with love, I writhe. His embrace envelops, we love. The heavens breathe light from stars. Drenched with scented sweat, we slowly merge as one. A moment in time, I cry. A moment in time, we fly. Thank you. And for the last one, this segment, I hate reading this, but unfortunately I'm going to tonight. This piece was originally published in 2018 in the Extreme Anthology, which is an anthology for social and environmental justice, which came out in Vagabond Books out of California by my friend Mark Littman. This is called Hollow. 6, 10, 12, 14, 26, 32, 49, 58. The death count ticks upward like a spastic taximeter. Quickly the casualties rise. 26, 32, 49, 58. The latest, worst mass shooting in America. As yet, Another city or town joins the club of, I never thought it could happen here, 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 there. Dear US government, how many more mass killings must happen here and there before you get off your fat, lazy ass? Your congressional moments of silence, your presidential visits of healing, your half-staff flags ring hollow. Your inactions are unspeakable evil. Your heads are hollow. Your hearts are hollow. San Ysidro, Columbine, Kylene, Newtown, Charleston. Whoops. Okay, sorry about that. Charleston, Chattanooga, Roseburg, Orlando, Las Vegas, Parkland, Oxford, Michigan, New York City, Washington, D.C., Milwaukee, Buffalo, Laguna Woods, Winston-Salem, Newberry, South Carolina, Uvalde, Texas, Tulsa, Phoenix, Philadelphia, Chattanooga, Chester, Virginia, Somerton, South Carolina, Colorado Springs, Chesapeake, Virginia. The list goes on. The club grows larger. The stakes set higher and higher. Your wallets grow fatter. Your stomachs grow fatter from bribing lobbyists whose endless supplies of cash and stakes is equal to their endless supplies of guns and bullets. Death never takes a holiday. Will you and your family holiday on your own private island far, far away? How about an all-inclusive trip to Mandalay Bay? The 32nd floor is nice, so they say. Guns don't kill people. Keep people kill people. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. The right of the people to keep and bear arms. But who protects the right of the dead who bear no arms? Not you, not you, not you, my US government of the people. Your prayers do nothing. Your vigils do nothing. Your flag waves do nothing. Your conduct does nothing. Your nothing speaks volumes. You loosen your belt, you do nothing. You are deaf. You are dumb. You are blind. You are hollow. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Lee. Very powerful. Like you, I wish we lived in a country where we would not be able to write poems like that because there would be no subject matter in order to do it. Okay, for her second round, second time at the mic, I would like to introduce Angela Yuriko Smith.
I don't know if I want to follow up on Lee's poem now. That was very powerful. I got to shake the chills off for a minute and come back to this right here. This is out of Zombies, the Weird Book Annual, edited by Doug Dre, I think the year before last. And fortunately, my story is about how if we got everything we wanted, using zombies to illustrate how that might not actually be what we want. So this is called Who Wants to Live Forever? I opened my eyes to see the rust-stained ribs of the bridge overhead. The acrid stench of burning garbage permeated everything. Someone might be trying to heat food or burn themselves alive. Nothing mattered. Neither would work. The nanobots did their job too well. The sound of bone splitting against metal echoed across the greasy water, followed by a splash. I sat up. A woman my age was floating face down. She looked hopeful. Smart. She had aimed for the carcass of a broken-down barge. It listed aimlessly with the current alongside her, two broken things on a journey to nowhere. There was a mark on the hull from her impact, a daisy-shaped splatter of dark red. It was pretty. It made me think of art. Maybe, but no. I sighed and stood up. No more disappointment. I'd tried art. I'd learned photography, stained glass, virtual sculpture, physical interpretation, and painting in every known medium, including blood. It was all good distraction for a while, but when the gloss wore off, the emptiness returned twice as bleak. I couldn't take the disappointment anymore. It's less painful to just not try. I shuffled off, slicing my bare feet in a litter of broken glass, shell, and twisted metal that decorated the shore. A shard of fence anchored in the sand pierced clean through my foot. For a few seconds, I was pinned by my appendage. My guts knotted as adrenaline and pain coursed through me. It was nice to feel something. And then the nanobots came and fixed that, just like they fix everything. The pain vanished. I sighed and pulled my foot free to look at the damage. There was a gaping hole on the thin part above the pinky toe. Pinkish bone peeked through the ripped flesh. I poked my finger in before it healed. Smooth, wet, and warm, I traced along the exposed bone. My heart fluttered, a reaction of the nerves that were still alive. I pushed harder. My finger slipped and poked through. Off balance, I somersaulted onto my head with a crunch. I lay on my back and stared at the sullied clouds until someone laughed. I craned my neck to see Daisy Blossom Bloodsplat Girl. "Kind of funny," she said. Her skin was a pale greenish blue from the river toxin taint. She opened her mouth to say something else and then stopped. We both knew there was no point in trying to converse. We could be friends, but after a few decades, we would both run out of things to say and the vacuum would return regardless. Maybe she hadn't been crushed by the burden of incessant existence enough, though, because she spoke anyway. "Want to get a coffee?" I sat up, trying to remember what coffee was. My brain ticked through options and rejected them in sequence before it hit upon the right moment. A paper cup full of steaming darkness. It had been winter, before all our problems were solved. I'd been so cold my toes ached. I closed my eyes, hanging on to the memory of before. When it faded, I looked back up at the girl. "Where?" I looked around at the broken pavement that used to be Cropsey Avenue. The concrete was latticed with cracks, the asphalt pitted from years of acid storm grinding away at it. At the other end, behind an overturned yellow bus, I saw the burned out shell of a gas station. The face, once glass. Now it was just a cavity open to the unkind elements. But I recognized the sign hanging at an angle off the facade. I pointed at it. "Oh, coffee." We both laughed then. Mine came out slow and congealed from lack of use. And then I stopped. I was not doing this again. I stood up, turned my back, and started walking away. "Hey," she called behind me. "Why not? You got someplace better to be?" I tried to think of a good comeback, but my brain was fixated on the memory of that steaming paper cup. I realized I wanted it bad. It felt like something. I turned around. Her skin had returned to a normal, healthy color by now. She had brownish gold eyes and hair the color of baked mud. Or that could be just mud. I suppose if I still cared, I'd call her pretty. "I want a coffee," I said, "but there's no coffee." I waved my hand toward the shell of the building. She didn't look where I pointed. She looked at me. "So there's no point," I added so she would understand the futility of her request. "It doesn't matter," she said. "We'll pretend." She took my hand, still stretched towards the former cafe, and started pulling me along with her. I stumbled behind, confused. "Why?" I asked. "Because we live in a perfect world." She walked while she talked. "Nanos made it so we couldn't be hurt. We fixed global hunger by fixing the need to eat. We've gotten everything mankind ever wanted. Remember how happy we all were at first?" We reached what was left of the gas station. "So what happened?" She faced me, waiting for my reply. All I could think of was that paper cup steaming out like a warm ghost. I remembered the smell. "We want coffee?" I finally said. "Exactly," she said. "We want to want. That's what made us crawl out of the ooze and evolve in the first place. We wanted something. We need to want, or we die." She walked to an overturned table and set it upright. She pulled a few chairs over and then set them up too. And I believe that's my time.
And thank you, Angela. I love the way you have these huge conceptual ideas in your stories, and you give them to us in dialogue and description in these little dribs and drabs. And so it's so fun to just sit and sort of watch you build like a Lego universe, one word at a time. I love it. I just love it. Okay, for his our third featured reader tonight for his second round, let's welcome again Mr. C.C. Arshagra.
Okay, thank you. So part 2 of this book is Death of an Ego. It was the second chapbook, and it also contains a 2-3 page reflection, which is a little essay, and just a short little excerpt from the middle of it. Free voices kept emerging to survive their own egos, giving us new treasures. The nurture of human free speech is up to us. So from the second section, Death of an Ego, number 14. He lived at the pace of day might be night. Then the poisons of negative thoughts in time filled the well within his pen's vein till it flooded the creative rest of his mind. The poems he wrote now stopped asking the writer in him to listen to his own dry ink, dying to speak back to him. I don't know if that's a nod to Angela's work. Number 17. Another new name was called up to the microphone. The bloody driven sounds of angry nails were heard. The cross shape of the stage floor and the mic stand took form. It was hard here and at times seemed impossible to see. Even harder to go on listening to somebody being one who is performing his own alone crucifixion. Number 18. While on stage, a full-length mirror stood before him. As he read on, attacking all the people of the world, he repeatedly kept pointing at everyone here listening. His reading voice reached pure frustration and blame. This killing world, this love of war making, this joy of hate breeding, this perpetual spawning of inhumanity spreading. Cover my eyes, his words cried to hush, then nearly died to dimly say, I am not a blind man. Can't you see? 23. When she reached the reading stage of confidence, she stood still to face the landing she was on. Then she realized the poetry she had planned to read upon arrival was at home under a shade tree, the place she wrote when she found time. Her mind flashed to see it pictured there, exposed to the oncoming weather. Her next step was all about believing in herself, followed by thoughts of children's rhymes and memories of painful knee scrapings. Then her lips moved in silence as she wrestled with a daydream about running from a rope's end that was throwing blinding lights at her. Then a chill shook her so hard it hurt. The shake induced by a real thought of a dear friend wounding her. And she was so close to reaching the stage of fears moving when she leaped with the ends of all her known faith. Then she died to find nothing had changed except her ego. I don't know if that's 5 minutes or is there another?
You've got a little bit more time.
Okay. Is time's venom relative, or is time a relative cure? The simple value of every moment and its constantly lost occurrence. The blink of alive, one lifespan going by. The myriad of ways of living together, each one's own human lesson passing. And who is to be left here amongst death's coming, with every day to be relearned? Thank you.
And thank you, my friend. So just an update to everyone. We're still having some technical difficulties. So I'm switching back and forth between my co-host and my host hat at the moment. And so our next segment is Did You Know? So, did you know the first recorded reference to anyone in England having a cup of tea was in Samuel Pepys' diary on September 25th, 1660? Did you know Robert Louis Stevenson, author of Treasure Island and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, formally gave away his birthday to an American girl while he was living in Samoa? The reason he did this was because the young girl named A.H. Hyde had her birthday on Christmas Day. So she didn't get as many presents as her friends. And so Robert Louis Stevenson gave her his birthday. Did you know that the author of the Paddington Bear series, Michael Bond, bought a Paddington Bear in a toy store in 1956 because he felt sad for the bear, as it was the only toy left on the shop's shelves on Christmas Eve, and it turned into an incredibly lucrative series. These literary facts are brought to you by interestingliterature.com. And here normally I would say, and back to you, James, but I can't. So I will jump straight into our Q&A with our featured readers. So let me pull up the questions that I got James to forward to me on short notice. And our first question for each of our three featured readers tonight, and we will begin with Mr. Lee Eric Freedman. Mr. Freedman, what is a poet's role in today's society?
Well, first of all, Angela and Cece, great second segments. And TA did hear my poem on the stream on Facebook, for those of you that were wondering, and he loved it. Well, the role, I mean, obviously with my hollow poem, the role as the poet, I think, is to tell the truth, and it can be in anything, to be political or, which is what we mostly think of, to tell the truth. But, and it's, it's to entertain as well, to teach people possibly, because you talk to most people and they're like, you're a poet? What the hell? Why do you do that? Do you rhyme? Well, no. I mean, poems tell stories, the Gilgamesh stories, the Bible kind of could be a big poem if you think about it. The Icelandic things like that. So it's entertaining, it's storytelling, it's political, to tell the truth. It's anything. And I think modern society needs it. People say, well, we don't need poetry, but we do, because you have to express yourself in a different way, in a creative way. Prose is great, but if you want to make it short and sweet, you got to do it in a poem. And I think it's important.
Thank you, Lee. I completely agree with you. So, Angela, what do you think, as an answer to this question, what is the poet's role in today's society, in your opinion?
I think that a poet's role is to be the conscience of a society, kind of like the literary Jiminy Crickets of the world. We're here, we can go along with what we think is popular and try to write things that please. But I think our true mission is to write things that need to be heard, kind of echoing what Lee said just now, to pretty much, not even some extent, but pretty much copy what Lee said. We are supposed to, as soon as we kind of get, of course, you're going to write to imitation at first while you learn what your voice is. But once you have your voice, I feel like it is our responsibility to use it to point out what is going on and cut through the rhetoric. And also, because we're poets, we're not bound by, say, things like money, because we know we're not going to sell anything. So we can just be truthful. We can say the truth because we're not going to get anything else. So that's my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Cece, what do you think the poet's role is in today's society?
Well, I love this question, and a lot of times I bring it up on my own, and I've been saying for decades that the job of the poet is to say what everybody is thinking and feeling, but no one will say. And another way to look at it is to speak what is almost impossible to say, to write or speak the ineffable. I love that word, if I'm pronouncing it right. I think that's the role of the poet in life. And I completely agree with Lee and Angela on both of their points. They're all good suggestions and guidelines to follow your heart, your true self, to not appease with your work. And basically to challenge yourself and to do one of the hardest things there is to do in life, and that is to be and become who you are behind who you think you are, who you want to be, or who you like to be, but to really dig deep and get out of your own way. Avoid popularity and fame as your reason to like Rick said in the introduction to what was it? Something about getting out of your own way. I forget what it was exactly. But yeah, I think that's about my 2 cents on that one.
Well,
I think we have a very important job to do, and we shouldn't underestimate saying the things Angela said. What's uneasy, even if it's in the form of horror, to make us see it.
and I absolutely agree. Our second question tonight, for those of you that have not been with us before, we ask each of our featured poets, featured readers, to give us a question that they would like to be asked. And so Lee asked us to ask him, do poems need editing? Why? And to ask Lee, tell us what your editing process is.
I think poems need editing. I know a few poems. I know a couple poets. They're not here tonight, and I listen to their poems, and they're great. But I think that they could use some trimming here and there. And it's important, I think, too, because I forget. People say it's Hemingway that said first draft is the best, but no, it's not. Or somebody also said the first draft is always shit, I think, as well. But I don't think it is. I think you need to get down to the nitty gritty, the bone of what you want to say. And sometimes you may not say it right. You may say a phrase and it won't work, and you think it's great, but it's obvious that you're mixing your metaphors and things like that. Now, for me, when I edit, I'll come up with an idea and I'll write a poem, and then I'll leave it maybe for a few days, a week, or somewhere, and then I'll and let it cook. I put it in the oven and let it cook, as I was told I should do, and then I'll come up and maybe I'll get some ideas and I'll have little notes and things I'll stick on it, and then when I feel I'm ready to write it, I'll write it again, and while I'm writing it, I can see how it's forming when I actually want to type it on my computer, because I write everything by hand. And then I'll do that at least 3 or 4 times by hand. And then finally I'll feel it's ready to type on the computer. And when I type it on the computer, then I'll make more edits. And when I feel it's ready to present, then I usually bring it to my tin box group, and we all sit around and we gently critique everybody's poems. And then I'll go back and do some more edits, and even more if I need to. So I'll actually maybe up to 8, 10, maybe 13 times before I come up with my final product. And I decided, and when I first started writing, I was always afraid to say things. And a number of years back, it's got to be maybe 15 years ago, I sat down one day and I came up with something. It was great. And I said, I'm never going to self-censor myself again. And I become such a better poet for not censoring myself. And you have to, and I don't think, maybe for some people it's difficult, but if you censor yourself, I don't think you're going to be a good poet. And even if whatever I write sucks, I still will write it as a poem. It may be the worst poem ever, but at least I didn't hold it back and I didn't censor myself, and I got it down on the page. And I do have to thank my Tin Box group. We've been together since the mid 90s, and people have come in and out. But all those people that I've met and the current people, Laurie Rosen's here today and Shelley Jankowski Smith. I become such a better poet because of my friends, Steve Inaconi as well, and Clem, who I've mentioned before. I become such a better poet because of them. And you need that, workshop your poem. If you can be in a workshop group, that's another great way of editing as well. And I think I picked that clean. So thanks, Rick. Thank you.
You bet. I think you did. Wise words, my friend. So, Angela, our first question for you that we gave to everyone is, what is a poet's role in today's society? The question you've chosen for yourself is, what is a poet's role to themselves?
Yes, I was totally cheating there and just bouncing off of the question you guys asked, but I do think it's an important question. When I first started writing poetry a long time ago, so the short answer is to be honest and to let ourselves have voice. That's what I think our responsibility is to ourselves. And so one of the reasons I think that we need to do that is because we have to think of, why do we write? Sometimes we write because we want to be famous, or we think we want to make money at this, or we're writing because we have to. And there's no better or worse answer to that. Why ever you write is why you should write, and go for that. But when I was first starting, I wrote because I had to. And that's pretty much, I felt like, as a terrible looking teen and reject child, like the unsociable reject person. That was me as a teenager, and writing poetry was the only thing that I felt like I had a decent shot at with anything. It's the only thing that anybody ever thought was like a good thing that I did. And then I went to high school and went to my first literary group so they could tell me how wonderful I was. And they ripped me to shreds and told me like how awful I was. And so I didn't write anything again for probably 40 or 50 years, or I don't know, I'm 53, so not quite that long, but probably at least 30 years. It was a while. And then I started writing again a little bit, but just for secret and not seriously, of course. I actually would tell people, I started participating in open mics to get over a fear of public speaking, which I hope you realize at this moment that I did actually get over. But I used to be really bad about that. And so I would go to these open mics, and so I would have to write poetry for the open mic. This was only therapy. I don't really think I'm a poet. I would never do that. Poetry is like terrible. I would never think of that as a serious thing. This was my attitude because of all the getting ripped to shreds and everything. I didn't want anybody to see that heart again, that heart of me. And then after a while, I realized that I did like this and that I was serious about it. And I got nominated for an Elgin, and I was kind of like, oh my God, they think I'm a poet, And I think probably 4 years into writing poetry, and I think I'd actually like won awards, and I'd had like 4 or 5 chapbooks published at that point. And I was telling my husband, why does everybody keep referring to me as a poet? And he said, because you are one, because of these things, because you write poetry, you're a poet. And so I think that is like that responsibility. If we're writing poetry for whatever reason, it's our responsibility to do that, because not everybody can do it. And because we can, because we feel that drive, we need to. And I guess I'll go back to that first question, because we are the conscience of a society, in my opinion. And we owe that to everybody. What we are seeing, we see things outside of the box usually, and that's our responsibility to point it out.
Great words. Thank you very much. Yeah, what I'm hearing from everybody is, I keep having a word, nobody's used this word, but it keeps coming up in my head. What poets need is courage. We have to have courage in every meaning of that word, within ourselves and within our work, and the courage to trust others. And that's part of the beauty of all of this, because if you try to do this, you find courage, and then that courage leads you to enlightenment. Okay, Cece, your question on a similar vein tonight is, beyond the desire for popularity and or fame, what do you think the role of a creative being is in this, our life?
Yes, I did the same thing Angela did. I took the first question and I blew it up and put us on the planet, and then maybe flew us up into the clouds and looked back and saying, who are we? What are we? Why are we? What are we? where are we? And my favorite, when are we? Our role of life as creative beings is similar to the answer I gave in the first question, is to go within, but also somebody wrote in the chat, what was it, just a bit ago, we are conduits. And it is kind of a true, we are conduits that go through. There's a lot of good stuff in the chat, by the way. And but in there, it comes the responsibility of what I forgot in the first part, is leaving a body of work. So it doesn't, you go through stages like what Angela went through. You go through writing, editing processes, like what each one has our own internal, face your own demons and get through it, to get beyond yourself. Because when we're gone, the accolades is not what matters. What matters is, I love referring to Bukowski, when you get up and you take a good hot steam and beer shit, you look down in the bowl there and you say, I did something today. Look what I made. I love the humility of that statement, because it's like you just get up every day and you write a good page, he said one time. And I like to refer to that. So our role is, we are, like Angela said, we were born, we live, and we are in time. We are responsible for documenting this period we're in. And if we're observant enough, then it's our job to say, no matter how ugly it is. I say all the time, I'm working on a book called do you know who your reality slavers are? And I think that's not a popular thing to say. I'm working on the project called the Human Room Open Voice for over 2 years, and that's about there is no virtual democracy. America Online doesn't exist, the concept of it. So let's make one. Money is already corrupt, so let's make something. So it doesn't, none of these things are popular. It's like, what do you mean? What's in it for me? Where's the catch? People might look for that, but it's doesn't matter. I'm the thing that I'm trying to do with my life before I go is this, one of my projects, the Human Room Open Voice thing, is to make it and then give it away, but it's designed to fail as much as it's designed to succeed. That's why I'm calling it a living work of art. So this is just my little 2 cents of, I was born in this little blink of an eye called the lifespan, and we don't even know what time is. And everything we think we know within 100 years may be somewhat of an illusion, or everything that they knew 5,000 years ago was 10,000 more evolved than we are now. And we're so dumbed down, we can't even see it because we think we're intelligent. I didn't read a poem, or I might read a poem from the next one about an academic poet who's in academia at the highest level, and it criticizes that. So I think the role that we have as creatives, and it doesn't matter if you're a baker in town, if you're a poet, whatever it is that you do to find the creativity of being, never mind jobs and money, but you are a creative being, and you should find your way into that creative being. And whatever you do, you are a work of art. And do that, be that, and don't be afraid of dying. Dying is your best friend. No one can take that away from you.
Preach, CC, preach. Great answer. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to jump right into our next segment. I will start by saying that I am extra excited tonight about our guest author because I'm a fanboy. Our guest author tonight is one of my favorite poets, Mr. Walter Bargen. Walter has published 25 books of poetry. Recent books include Days Like This Are Necessary, New and Selected Poems by BKMK Press in 2009, Trouble Behind Glass Doors, Perishable Kingdoms, Too Quick for the Living, My Other Mother's Red Mercedes, which is an incredible book, until next time. One of my very favorite titles of a poetry book ever, and it is the book that will be raffled off tonight. Walter's been kind enough to give us a copy and we'll be sending it out. Pole Dancing in the Nightclub of God from Red Mountain Press 2020, and You Wounded Miracle from Lillian Verlag 2021. His awards include a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, Chester H. Jones Foundation Award, and the William Rockhill Nelson Award. He was appointed the first poet laureate of Missouri. from 2008 to 2009. So everybody, welcome to Founders Day for poetry in Missouri here and being taken seriously. Without further ado, I am honored and touched and pleased to welcome our guest author for the evening, Mr. Walter Bargen.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm certainly glad to be here. I've been really enjoying all the comments that I've been listening to. And of course, Rick is performing magnificently for us, lubricating all the wheels and making sure we don't get caught up in anything that is going to sidetrack us. So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do now.
Well, you have, if I'm remembering what James usually does, you've got, I believe, 7 minutes to read to us, or you can read for 5 minutes and you can choose to answer the question that we asked everybody, which is, what is the role of a poet society? So do you want to answer the question and then read, or do you want to just read for 7 minutes? Your choice.
I will try giving an answer to the question, what is the role of a poet, by quoting paraphrasing Robert Frost. He said a poem begins in delight and ends in wisdom. And of course, immediately, the hairs on our head or on the back of our neck should stand up, because that is BS on a lot of levels. But there's also a lot of insight in that line, because he was also aware of the problem of what he had just said, but he was focused on the word wisdom. He very quickly took a step back from wisdom and said that rather than wisdom, a poem should begin in delight and end with a clarification of life. Well, he then took a step back from that and said a small clarification of life. And then he took one more step back and he said, a poem should be a momentary stay against confusion. And I thought, that is really lovely. And I've taken that to heart. But even that has its own problems. And I'm not sure why he kept backing away from it. I think that he thought that trying to demand too much of a meaning in a poem is going to cause a lot of cliches to begin to surface in poets. And there may be some other reasons why too, but I thought that was really, that is the role of a poet. That's the role of a poem. And since the poem is written by a poet, it's also the role of a poet. A momentary stay against confusion. That's all he's asking of a poem. And I think that's more than enough. But with that in mind, I'm going to read you a poem called Gorilla God. And that is from my book, Too Quick for the Living. And this is about an interview that I was part of, and coming up against that same question again and again. The interview room is cold. The angles softly harden against sound. The inevitable question arises: what makes a good poem? I'm never prepared. On radios across the country, silence pulls a Saturday night special. The microphone points in every direction that I turn. I take a deep breath, submerge a third time into resignation, then ask forgiveness for an answer I haven't yet given. I could be glib and ask what doesn't make a good poem, and not be glib at all, but mean it, or resort to cliche. It's not the wave or the surfboard, but the surfer who sculpts the ride. Too quickly, I'm a sun-bleached beach bum, describing the ball tossed within a circle of people kicking imaginary sand on a stage in front of a packed auditorium. The crowds murmur the rush of high tide as floodlights swamp the stage. The audience is asked to count the times the ball is thrown like the abacus of waves rattling along the shore. Watchers sure to be lost within the churning susurration. The wind salting their eyes as a loose line of pelicans wing pumps past. If the audience wants to complicate the task, prove their prowess, how far out they can stretch their attention, swim beyond lifeguards and safety buoys. They can sum the catches within the circle of throwers. When asked for totals, there's disagreement. A few people crying like gulls over a washed up dead seal. When I ask if anyone noticed anything else, there are a few tentative hands raised who perhaps recall Lowell's definition of poetry, a controlled hallucination. I love that. Lowell's definition of poetry, a controlled hallucination. Though maybe they're drunk from one too many complimentary glasses of wine, they confess to seeing a person dressed in a cheap gorilla suit run through the middle of the circle while the ball was tossed back and forth. Truth trembles, variations of misperception and blindness, what we can't see, a matter of visions and revisions. Is that what Blake meant? Imagination is not a state, but the essence of human existence. And so I answer the question. A good poem is the one that is looking for the gorilla running across the shores of our lives. I should have probably prefaced this by saying that this is actually describing something that happened. There's 1,200 people in an auditorium. A bunch of volunteers get up and start tossing a beach ball back and forth. And then people are asked to count how many times they've thrown the ball back and forth. And then somebody actually runs through the circle in a gorilla suit. And only about 6 people out of 1,500 people, maybe 1,200 people, saw that person in the gorilla suit. What does that say about our ability to perceive the world? You know, so yeah, it's complicated, our interaction with the world. So I'm going to read Pole Dancing in the Nightclub of God is something that grew out of another book that I had done earlier called The Feast, where I retold the story of Jonah in the Bible. Only Jonah is a modern day character. So for example, he is described standing in a line at Walmart with a plastic bag filled with water and small fish, waiting to go through the checkout line. And he's coughed up on a North Miami nude beach, and where he meets a Mary Kay saleswoman who takes care of him. So what I've done with this book is that I retell some of the stories of other characters in the Bible. So the first section deals with Adam and Eve, and the second section, which I have momentarily lost, deals with Moses, and this section is called Mosaic. This particular piece is called God's Juice. Maybe Moses writes the note just to see if he can do it, to see if he has anything to say. Maybe he thinks it's just too good to be true. Maybe he wants his own secret, one that God won't know about. Maybe he just doesn't want to share everything, especially after the stone tablets. Maybe he doesn't know if he knows enough to really have a secret. But if he wants to share, all he needs to do is light a candle. He does a test, squeezing juice out of that cut in half lemon, dips the quill of a pigeon feather he found in an alley, and writes something, a few words of encouragement or disdain, all directed toward himself, then strikes the match with its literary glow, holds it under the piece of scrap paper until the juice begins to brown, as if some small passion is writing the words. He is no longer responsible and can blame the match for all the banality until the paper catches fire and momentarily rises into the air, a brief black flight of notoriety before falling in ashes. Now he can write invisible messages to no one in particular. 180-degree turn at this point. Maybe that's something of what MacArthur Wheeler, 45 years old, had in mind, all 5 feet 6 inches, 270 pounds of him, when he entered Fidelity Savings in Brighton Heights and Mellon Bank in Swissvale, in the bank on South Fairmont, starting at 12:10 p.m. On a cloudless sunny day, gun pointed and no disguise, no Groucho Marx mustache or Joker mask, no white beard, robe, and staff. He was clearly visible to the surveillance cameras, and all they could say after the arrest was, "But I wore the juice." Under interrogation, MacArthur claimed to have run a test in front of a bathroom mirror. The lemon juice burned his skin and his eyes, forcing him to squint. He even snapped a Polaroid, and he was nowhere in the picture. Perhaps the film was squinting too hard or out of date. Perhaps the camera was faulty. Perhaps he pointed the lens in the wrong direction. True or not, the gravity of belief is what holds the universe down for another day or two. So Moses continues with his lemon juice memoirs. It's what comes over him sometimes, writing the unreadable. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter.
I hope I didn't run over on time.
You did not run over, and if you'd wanted to, you could have, because, you know, I got all the power as host tonight. And like I said, you're one of my favorite poets, so I could just sit here and listen to you. And I love, you know, I had read your work before I heard you read it, but I love your soft-spoken, straightforward delivery. It just adds to what you're doing and makes me love your work even more. So thank you so much for taking your time and being with us tonight. And everyone, please join me in another round of applause for one of the best poets in this country, Mr. Walter Bargen.
Thank you for your two comments.
Okay, everybody, here we are. I'm still running solo here. James, you're gonna owe me, dude. But I think we're making it through. Our next section is when we have our third and final section with our featured readers. And I'm going to jump straight into that. And I'm going to reintroduce to all of you, Mr. Lee. Come on back, Lee. And
Excellent.
read a little more.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Walter, that was great. Great stuff. Thank you. I know I can't win the raffle, but I'm going to look into buying your book, I think. That was wonderful. All right, so I have three. One is very little tiny one in the middle, and then two longer ones will bookend. This next one dates from 2018, and it's funny because we were talking about how Facebook can be an asshole. Well, before we started tonight, before we came on, and a friend of mine, his name is Richard Salandong, and he's from Philippines, but he lives and works in Oman for a hospital corporation. But he's also trying to become a social media influencer or something to that effect. And he asked me to share his reels on Facebook, so I've shared a couple. But I don't know. He's right now. If you look at his Facebook post, he's got like 4,000 followers or something. I don't know. Too much for me. But this poem dates from 2018, and the epigraph is by the goth band, the Sisters of Mercy, from their song, This Corrosion. Give me the ring, kissed and told. Give me something that I missed, a hand to hold, wild and what it seems. This is called Open Face. 87 million people. 8 times the population of Burundi, a Googleplex of likes times 50. Facebook, an attractive con artist, a superb device built on ruthless exploitation of our personal data. Facebook got us data mined, collected and analyzed. They mined our minds, crunched the numbers, hacked our private lives. Is it personal? Is it private? Do we still own it? Did it even belong to us in the first place? A perfect picture of your moistest meatloaf. I'm going to take a drink here. A perfect picture of your moistest meatloaf. David's daughter scores her first goal. That photo of my huge, well, I took that down because you were like so jealous, but hey, they trolled that print too. I can just see that thing getting duped 1,000 times and winding up on cable somewhere. 87 million of us downloaded, clicked, baited, jiggered, trawled by the very British Cambridge Analytica. But everyone loves the Brits. I think they're so awfully nice. Pip, pip, and stiff upper lip, ship shape and Bristol fashion. They invented the Beatles and Harry Potter. But we clicked on it. They cashed on it, deliberately carving us like Scrooge's goose, decidedly serving themselves bits and bites and bites and more bites of my brain, straining, sieving, squeezing juicy pulp and pips to blend and be mingle with your juicy bits, his juicy bits, and those over there's juicy bits into smooth, juicy data caches, determined to crack the code of who you or I voted for. Our books are open face. What were we thinking when we signed the line to live inside this digital universe? We knew the consequences of our actions. Click here to play our reindeer games. Eureka, it's so fun. Better than life, better than drugs. Congratulations, Kevin. Nice one, Angela. Is my high school bully still asking, hey, do you want fries with that? Romper, stomper, bomper, boo. Tell me, do. Magic mirror, tell me today, did all my friends have fun at play? Love the selfie, Charles. John's posting a new song. OMG, she's such a bitch. They mined our minds, duped, dug, delved. They graphed and fulfilled, welding my brain into your brain, into Hammer Horror's Frankenstein monster and its pulsating data storm of know-it-all. I know who you are. Come out wherever you are. We got eviscerated when we pledged our faith. They reap what we've sown. We're easy rows to hoe. This is what you want. This is what you get. This is what you want. This is what you got. Open book, open face, open sesame. We didn't have a clue, or we were too stupid to care in the first place. Thanks. And I got two more. Little quick one, and I think this is kind of what we were talking about editing and stuff. This is a haiku. Open mic haiku. At the microphone. Don't watch me, watch the poem. I'm just scenery. I'll read that again because you're supposed to read haikus twice. At the microphone, don't watch me, watch the poem. I'm just scenery. Finally, where I come from East, the old countries, Russia, Poland, Belarus, Ashkenazic Jew with a smatter of Asia tossed in for good measure because all the best Jews have Chinese eyes. I come from grandmother Earth, Flora, whose brother married the Goisha girl while the family held a funeral. Rose, whose family missed the boat. Uncle Murray got sick. They were delayed. The Titanic sailed anyway. I come from grandfather Time, Abraham, so afraid he'd be detained, locked out, rejected, and sent back for losing his hat on the boat trip to Boston. Nathan, told by his brothers to lie and tell the man he was older so he could find a job. Later drafted by the army, he forgot how old he really was. I come from Mother Norma. I come from Father Sherman, children of Lynn, the city of sin. On Highland streets and Central Square meets, they stepped off the mountain and moved by the sea. I come from the 12 tribes of Israel. I come from the 12th house of Pisces. B positive blood, ruled by Neptune, born on a Friday snow 2 weeks too soon in the year of psychedelia. Interstellar overdrive, surrealistic pillow, Sergeant Pepper, Waterloo sunset, summer of love is all you need, days of future past, all tomorrow's parties, alone again, or Jimmy plays Monterey on the birthday unit floor of Lynn Hospital. My brothers tell me later I was found in the dump. Lynn Hospital, Closed down, knocked down, forever gone. I now come from Stop and Shop, born somewhere inside the deli, dairy, produce, or possibly aisle 9. I come from March 3rd in the year of our Lord 1967. I come from 21 Adar in the year of our Lord 5027. The year of sheep, the year of guinea pig, born under aquamarine, bloodstone, heliotrope, born under march hare, birch, alder, ash, daffodils, primrose, celandine. My roots touch unseen knowledge. I come from the goddesses, Coventina of water, Estra, the fertile, Nua, the creator, and Rhea, the mother of all. I come from Swampscott, Musqueamscott, Musquamscott, Wanna at the Red Rock, Broken Waters, the Pleasant Water Place, the Big Blue. I come from cordwainers, salesmen, secretaries, boss men, drapers. I come from music, left of the dial, black leather jacket, new wave, post-punk, punk rock, grunge rock, black as goth, industrial, experimental, live sex, room 101, no commercial potential. Born in the 60s, molded in the 70s, rebelled in the 80s, slacker in the 90s, Generation X, hurdles forward in 21st century. I come from introversion, ambiversion, indecision, pessimism. I come from Lee, from Eric, Lee the flea, flea flicker, Lee Masoid, the meadow, the lion, the heart, renegade poet laureate. I come from Thunderbird. I come from Ravenclaw. I come from marathons. I come from Red Sox Nation. I come from rainbows, chasing colors, playing both teams, loving all, alone forever. I come from New Mexico, the land of enchantment, Taos, my enchanted space, finding my voice, honing my skills, fueling my words, these words. I come from poetry, I come from microphone, tin box, this magazine, King Hooper, Speak Up First Friday, SpoFest, to lay it all out, spit it all out, scream it all out, puke it all out, come it all out, not give a shit, exposing my body, excising my brain, my spirit, my sex, from where I come from to where I go to, as I walk, jog, sprint to the so very bright, very bright, very bright, very bright future. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you, Angela, CC, Rick, James, everybody who came tonight. Thank you so much. I'll let Angela get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Can you hear me now?
Hey, James is back. Hot diggity.
James
Wow,
is
hot
back.
diggity.
Lee, you kicked ass.
Wow, James is unfrozen. Blind man cometh.
Yeah, I'm not gonna belabor what happened and everything, but Zoom needs to fix their stuff here. But anyway, I'm gonna go back on mute status. Rick, go ahead and take it over, and we'll meet up at the book raffle.
Okay, sounds good to me. With that in mind, our next reader is Angela Yuriko Smith. Take it away.
All right. Well, I gotta say, Lee, you cured the whole Zoom. You fixed Zoom with that. And also, why am I following Lee? I don't think that's fair. I just feel like that's not fair. But it's an honor. This brilliant reading so far from everybody. It's been an honor to be here. And now I will finish up with something not serious for my part, making friends, where I get to use my Southern accent, which is my natural accent. I hide it really well. Making friends. Miriam, oh, and this is from Hybrid, Misfits, Monsters, and Other Phenomena, which was an anthology that came out, I think, last year. Miriam heard the noise again. Oh, and let me put my timer on. Miriam heard the noise again. The first time she thought she'd been dreaming, but this time she heard it for sure. It sounded like stone grating against stone, but she couldn't think of anything else that would be moving rock at this time of the night. She nudged Bill. There's something outside. A seasoned farmer, a good man who protected his family and hearth. His hand was already hefting up the bedside shotgun before his eyes were even open. He swung his legs onto the floor. Which side of the house? His voice was slurred with sleep. Before Miriam could answer, the sound came again from the back. Without another word, Bill retreated from the bedroom and into the shadowed house to defend it. Miriam shivered in bed. She groped around under the comforter until she found Daisy and scooped her out to cuddle. She knew Bill would leave the patio door open behind him, and Miriam couldn't have Daisy running out. She heard the back door slide open and the heater kick on. "How hard is it to close the damn door?" Miriam muttered into Daisy's fur and waited. The sound came again. Even wide awake, it sounds like something from a nightmare. Her thought was interrupted by the gun blasting in the night and the stone-on-stone growl cut short. Miriam held her breath, listening. Footsteps crunched in the frozen grass, and then a sharp rap on the glass. Miriam startled with a shriek. Daisy squirmed from her arms and charged through the house, barking furiously. Bill's voice reassured from outside through the glass. "It's all right. Gun went off on accident." "Daisy ran out," Miriam shrieked back. "Don't let her get hurt." She was already out of bed to rescue her baby. Pulling her robe on inside out, she hurried through the house. "Stupid man has to scare the piss out of us to say he misfired. Just yell that, you damn fool." Outside, Daisy yelped, and Miriam charged out the door, no longer concerned with the rising cost of gas heating. "Get Daisy! Daisy!" The frosted grass sparkled in the light of a full moon, and it would have been pretty if Miriam wasn't barefoot and trying to save her dog. She rounded the corner to see Bill holding Daisy in his arms, safe. Both were staring up into the old fir oak. "What on earth?" She marched up to Bill. "Give me that dog before she freezes. You should have shouted she was okay. I'd have got my shoes." Over her head, the night air shuddered as the growl rolled through the shadow. It felt like the vibration came down through the night air to trim her all the way to the base of her spine, where it sat like a lump of old snow. Without moving her head, she looked to Bill. He was staring up into the tree. He glanced back at her. "Don't worry, we caught it." He glanced down at her feet. "Go put your shoes on, you damn crazy woman, and get back out here with the camera." "Caught what?" She reached for Daisy and followed Bill's gaze. Something was in the live trap Bill set for raccoons, but this was no raccoon. Miriam didn't know what it was. For one thing, it didn't act panicked like a regular animal. It sat up in the cage, staring down at them, munching a bit of bait corn with unnatural calm. It was hard to see much of it in the dark, but it looked like the moon was shining off of bare skin like it had no fur. Its eyes glowed faintly red in the dim light. Daisy squirmed in Bill's arms and jumped free. Even she wasn't acting natural. Like most Chihuahuas, Daisy barked at anything that might be a potential threat, and anything that moved was deemed a potential threat. Here was the strangest creature they'd ever seen, and the little dog was just looking up at it and wagging her tail. The animal in the tree let out another growl rumble, and Daisy wagged harder, jumping around playfully, and then sat down like she was begging. Miriam looked back up at the trapped creature. "Are you sure it can't get out?" Bill shrugged. "I'm not sure of anything right now, but that's a solid trap." Miriam looked back to Daisy, who was staring into the tree like it was a new favorite toy. "I'll get the flashlight," she said. She returned to find Bill had unhooked the trap from the tree and set it in the grass. Daisy and the creature were nose to nose, sniffing each other. Miriam had never seen Daisy's tail wag so fast. She rushed forward. "I'll leave her out here with you for 2 minutes, and you're going to get her rabies." Miriam tried to scoop Daisy up, but the little dog evaded and went to the other side of the live trap to continue sniffing. "Daisy's fine. Give me the flashlight." Miriam handed it over. With just a click, and the strange beast in the cage was fully illuminated. It glanced up into the light, blinked, and went back to sniffing Daisy. It was hard to tell what kind of creature it was. The skin was black, nearly hairless, with a light sheen. The thing stood on its hind legs and had hands like a raccoon instead of paws. The creature poked an offering of corn out to Daisy, who wagged harder and took it. "I think this creature has a liking for your dog." Bill leaned in closer for a better look. The beast turned its attention away from feeding Daisy and looked up at him. Without aggression, it studied him. The grinding noise sounded again from the creature, but softly this time. One tiny hand poked through the live trap bars and reached up. Without thinking, Bill held out a finger. And I'm going to end it there. And if you're curious about the story, this is actually based on a true story when they found a chupacabra in New Mexico somewhere. And I was so fascinated. This was my story for what I wish had happened. Unfortunately, it disappeared when the Game and Fish took it.
Very interesting. You always make me think with your work. I really appreciate that. Fantastic. Our last featured reader segment tonight is, last but not least, Mr. C.C. Arshagra.
All right, thank you, Lee. That was pretty powerful. You said something about unleashing yourself early on, and don't stop doing that. You got decades ahead of you. Keep on that train. And Angela, it's been just nothing but a pleasure working with you and knowing you all this time. And I hope I don't miss you when you head to another continent there. You keep in touch with us, all right? And love your work and your enthusiasm and the way you support us all. The third section of this book is the open microphones, death of an ego. I mean, what manner of character? And one of the sentences in the reflection, the essay on the third part is, it says here, should an open microphone soul inspire us to be our original selves, to become the light that was given to us alone? And the what manner of character, instead of just being number 1 through number 27 open microphone, they're named, you know, alone and snapshot and pain free and controller and win-win, yada yada. This is alone. Let me see this. Alone. Alone. Alone, the poet lives crowded on the world stage of everybody living some form of isolation. Here, alone delves into the self of no safe feelings to stretch and feel the breathing of others. Alone now in thoughts and points of view free, inhales, then feels no rejection or acceptance. Here flesh to sky, here flesh to marrow. Here by every end of the flowing world's way, still new ways are to be discovered. This membrane is, and it opens. And if there's time at the end, I'll do nobody. Pain-free. Pain-free, poet pain-free thinks the earth is an ivory tower and is sitting in a prison of knowledge. He has never known the pressure of the back door that leads down to the dank and ill-misty hallways that only his servants would use to exit pity. He has never known the love of a woman who could laugh. His butler fluffs his pillow that waits nightly for his death. Awake, he keeps pacing exclusive long halls filled with dust, more alive than what flows through his veins. And during the years that this was written, there was a lot of controversy around the subject of slam, and believe it or not, that was a unfortunately pretty intense world. And there was amazing poetry came out of some of those poets, and some sad stories of poets competing. And so I took this poem to one of the founders of the entire movement that brought it from Chicago to Cambridge. And I showed it to him because I didn't want to create any riffs, but I did want to be honest. And this one's called The Win-Win Poets. The win-win poets wanted to be the best. They wanted to be in the company of literati, celebrity, word star, entertainer. When one wrote about AIDS, he went for shock value versus one who wrote about rape and wrote about rape with vengeful graphic images. One wrote against racism and read it like a racist versus one who wrote about home and spoke of being homeless now. Each win-win poet hated it when the audience liked some other poet better. The AIDS poem needed to be better than the homeless one. The rape poet needed to be better than the incest one. The race poet needed to be better than the human one. The lost soul poet needed to be better than one finding soul. Amazing. Each win-win poet needed to win, fighting back and cursing out every disappointing judgment. Poets willing to kill other poets being. Poets willing to kill other poets trying. Poets willing to kill other poets dying. Willing to kill to get to the top. Poetry is not always pretty. And my favorite one in the book, and please, I'll put it in the chat. I hope you buy this at least for a gift for somebody who decides to do this with their life. The Open Microphone Whisper. Whisper, the poet riveted the silence. The drama of her soft, bitter, sweet secret pulls you underneath thought's seed and gently shakes your dreams awake. Oh, she'd never read beneath the levels of your sleeping ears to guide you closer to your fears, to give your tears the room to fall true. She'd reach the place that is safe inside you and glide you toward your next breath's rest. Where away you shed the face of stress. Where away you fed the, where away you, okay, feature reading with phones. She'd reach the place that is safe inside you and guide you toward your next breath's rest. Where away you shed the face of stress to discover what connects you to your soul's gift. She'd tap the doubts you carry daily, enlighten you to be yourself with no religion, God, or icon, no hero, heroine, guardian, or drug. She'd tickle your pain when your vengeance wants to harden and spare you from becoming exactly what you hate. She'd walk your soul to its quiet threshold and spare you from becoming exactly what you hate. I read that line twice. I'm having a weird time here. She'd walk your soul to its quiet threshold, but she cannot take for you this last step. She may vibrate in your presence, lighten your mirror, but to see who you are is still your own choice. She's not a fantasy, for she resides alive. She does not invade your body's will or soul. I read that one wrong too. I'm having a weird time. She's here in your mind, for you let her be there where you can never know how to hold her. If you think to possess her, she will fly away, leaving you to prey on your own self. The difference, utter itself honestly. Destroyed it. Within now is a listening key. Here she will place alone one thought on your mind. The smallest lie is your loudest measure. She whispered this laughing with you on one face. You alone know what deceives yourself or any other. For she is not a muse you exhaust for power. She will play no role in the game of your ego. Away her wind lifts, lifting you clear through senses of awe and all uncertain spirits, moving you round, still in flesh, floating wonder. She drifts away motionless, leaving you breathless. Thank you.
Thank you, CC. Thank you very much. You got through it, man. Good
Yeah, I
job.
don't know if that happens. It happens. I'm tired. I've been up.
Again, I apologize to everyone for this being a weird evening. Apparently the recordings just stopped again. But we're gonna get through all of this. Next, I would like to talk about looking ahead into the new year. Our next must-watch SpoFest feature reader event is going to be on January 3rd at, of course, our standard 6 p.m. We will be making an announcement soon regarding who our 3 features will be for that event. We have not yet locked all of that down, but we're in the process of doing so. Our next must-watch SpoFest writing prompt, rough draft, and exquisite corpse event is December 27th at 6 p.m. And joining us will be special co-host Christopher Moore. And then normally here I would say back to you, James, but I'm going to jump straight into our next segment, which is words of wisdom and art and thought and everything else that you could imagine from our very own purple poet, back from the hospital, just like me, walking wounded tonight. Judy, we're so glad that you were able to do this, and so grateful that that boy, you're here at SpoFest, even what, 4 days after major surgery, 5 days after major surgery. You are a trooper. So everybody, words of wisdom from the purple poet. What you got for us tonight, Judy?
Thank you all. Well, this is an on the fly, but I kind of like it. I'll call it a first draft. So words of wisdom: do it, write it, try it. Don't let anyone tell you you can't, you shouldn't. What would people think? Do it, write it, try it. Spend time with kindred spirits. Don't judge. Don't be swayed by bios or experience. There are no poetic pedestals necessary. Share. Everyone has something to help others. And probably the most important part here is your permission slip. It's lifetime. Do it, write it, try it. And you may all be fans of tramadol, but you know what? I'm thinking oxy's not such a bad thing. And so words of wisdom.
Well, I'm glad to be off. I'm glad to be off of all of it. Thank God. So I don't think I could have done this little bit unusual evening if I'd still been on the tramadol. I just would have kind of curled up in a ball and said goodnight. But lots of wisdom tonight. And as always, plenty of it from Judy. Thank you very, very much. Our next segment is our open mic. And we have about 40 minutes approximately left this evening. We have currently on my list, a couple of people have left, but 22 people who would like to read. And so when I do the math, if we want to be out of here by 8:30, that means hold it to about 2 minutes apiece, if you would. That would be one longer poem, two fairly short ones. Remember, please, everyone, that any expository information you have at the beginning or the end